everyone, it's John from What Up, and welcome back to another video, and welcome to my new series, Talking Wheel of Time With. Now, today I have with me Rob Christianson, and we're going to talk all about the Wheel of Time. We're going to talk about some of the merchandise that that they take care of there at their store, that they're selling, and I have some of it here I'm going to show you later on, and he also has some too. So we're talking about that. We're going to talk just a bit about the book series. We're going to talk about the show. We're going to talk all things Wheel of Time. Now, because that is the case, we have to give a spoiler warning for the episode because, of course, we're going to spoil absolutely everything and anything there is to do with the series. In fact, I'm going to basically read the last chapter, the last battle, as soon as we finish the spoiler. No, I won't. But, so, spoiler warning. If you haven't read at least all 15 books, that's New Spring, all the way up through and including A Memory of Light in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan, and you haven't watched the show, that's on Amazon Prime Video, episodes 1 through 8, be forewarned, we're going to ruin major character arcs, plot points, and all kinds of other little tidbits as we talk today. All right, thanks so much for... Baby. Yeah, all spoilers, full spoilers. Every episode I have is full spoilers. Bella dies, so except the companion says she doesn't. So maybe I don't know. We'll go with that.
I don't believe the companion.
I believe the companion. We'll go with that. I'm happy that she's not dead. Although she's not even in the show, not really. So
left her.
They left her out. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate this. This is a new series I'm doing, hopefully weekly. That's the plan anyway. We'll see if we can get one out every single week. There might be some weeks we miss, but we're going to talk with all kinds of different people about the Wheel of Time. So we'll start off by, why don't you tell us a little bit about the projects having the go and your place in the Wheel of Time fandom.
Let's see. So back in, I want to say 95, I was living with a couple guys who were big time fantasy nerds and good friends of mine. We actually started a this is going to date me here, a bulletin board, a BBS together, back before the internet was a thing, and you'd call up other people's computers and you'd chat with them and stuff like that, and we'd have forums and files and things like that, and so we got together and we decided, like, we were hanging out at each other's houses so much, playing Magic the Gathering back then when it came out, that we should just like get a place together so we could play Magic whenever we want. So we moved in together. We lived together for 3 years. We never played Magic once after that, but we did like we had some great times, and they were the ones who introduced me to the Wheel of Time. We at the time, like, we had came back from the bookstore and we had picked up, like, I think like the latest Dark Tower book. I think they were on like the 4th book, I think. And we plowed through that, and then I was like, okay, that was awesome. I need something else to read. And you guys have a million books in your rooms, and I just have like Stephen King and Michael Crichton and John Grisham and stuff. But I really they said, like, well, what do you want to read? And I said, I really like those Dragonlance books that you let me borrow back in high school. That was kind of fun, and so, like, maybe something like fantasy, because the cool thing about the Dark Tower is kind of like fantasy, Western, sci-fi. And so I was like, something like that. And so one of my buddies, Mark, he goes back into his room and he comes out with the Eye of the World, the paperback version that's like this thick, right? Mm-hmm. Chucks it at my head. Hits me in the head. And he's like, here you go. And so I read that. I had so many questions during the prologue, and I'm just like, okay, just tell me what the heck is an Aes Sedai, like, oh, it's like a female wizard. And I'm like, okay, cool. So, like, just these, basic little tips they told me, but no spoilers or anything. And I tell people that, like, that night I left the Two Rivers with Moraine and Land, and I never turned back. And, like, it basically ruined all of other fantasy for me, because, like, there's nothing quite at that level, I mean, and after that, like, I read a lot of, like David Eddings and some Terry Pratchett. I love Terry Pratchett because of the humor. And what else? A lot of Weiss and Hickman stuff. The Deathgate cycle was awesome, and so they really introduced me to a lot of fantasy, and I'm like, now I want my own copies of these books, because I'm not going to live with you losers forever. So I joined what they had a thing at the time that you remember, like the old Columbia House.
It's 1,000 CDs for 1 cent or whatever it was.
You send them a penny. You tape the penny on there and you do little stamps. There was a similar thing called the Sci-Fi Book Club, and it was like sci-fi and fantasy books, 12 for $1 or whatever it was.
I actually got my original copy of Legends through the Sci-Fi Book Club. That's with the original New Spring in it. That's where I got that. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, so I can get like all the Wheel of Time books so far, like for less than $1, and I'll have my own. And then like they showed up, and that was cool, except they were like a little bit smaller than like the official ones and stuff. And I'm like, well, it's all cool. So, so I got those, and I think that was probably up to probably Crown of Swords or Path of Daggers at the time. And then, that was when I dove in. Then I had to, wait through the slog like everybody else, like as you're reading them as they go along, I have to wait 3 years to find out what happens to Matt when the house falls on him, like it's not in the next book, like those kind of things. And so for me, the slog was real. On rereads, not really so much, but
that's the thing.
Waiting.
Yeah, about the slog, I think the slog was more about the wait than anything else. I mean, that plot line with Rand and Fael, or Perrin and Fael rather, goes on for a little too long, I think, and it's just over too many different books. But I think the wait was more than the problem with anything else. I think a lot of new readers are intimidated by it, and they keep asking the question, when do I hit it? Well, you're not really going to hit the slog because you're not waiting 2 years in between. Yeah, so exactly.
And then you wait, and then you finally get the book, and then you pour through the book, and then you're like, nothing really happened. There's Fael still captured. Like, what the heck is still going on? Like that was the frustrating part about it. So like, since then it's not really as big of a deal. And I think also I started reading the books back then. I was 20, so I was the same age as the boys, and so I could identify a lot with their, immaturity and frustrations and stuff like that. But like having grown up since then, and now I'm probably like, Tam's age as I'm reading these books, I see it from a different perspective, like, I'm just like, you idiot children, listen to Moraine. What are you talking, like, and so, there's been, you gain a lot of perspective, over the years since then and subsequent rereads and stuff. And now I find myself actually like, I really like the Andor and Succession timeline, where it just drove me crazy before, because now I like the intricate politics and stuff that are there.
Well, every time I read the books, every time I do a reread, and I've done a lot of rereads, I tend to like different parts. I always find different characters that I like better. Like there's, I'll go through a read and people are gonna roast me for this one, but I'll hate Matt on a read, or I'll hate Perrin, or I'll hate Rand. And I dislike Rand a lot when I read the books. Or I really won't like Moraine, or like it'll be different every time, or there'll be different plot lines that I'm just like, I want to skip this. I just don't. I'll read it because I can't skip it, but I'm like, I could skim and no one would know.
Yeah.
But it's always different every single time I read it, and I think it's I think a lot of it has to do with where you're at in your life and what's going on and what interests you at the moment. And I think that's why a lot of Wheel of Time fans are so passionate about the books, because they identify different aspects or parts of their life along with parts in the books. And if they read them again, it seems to change a bit, but it's just one of those things that I think our fandom in particular feels like they own the books, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So you run Weekly Wheel News, and I was featured in an issue at some point. I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was a while ago now. Because
I think it was the second series, the second year. Because I know it was like you're the sole member of the Gowan fan club.
The Gowan fan club, that's right. I got the tattoo. Absolute favorite character. But there is something special about the papers themselves. The first series, they happen to be in a certain place, don't they?
Yes. So back in the day when the show was first like gestating in the minds of the writers, then Rafe, I almost forgot his name for a minute. Sorry. Cardinal Sin.
That guy, whatever he is.
Yeah, redheaded guy. It looks like an Aiel. He's always out traipsing around the world. That guy. I think he was on Survivor at one point in time. Anyway, so he did their room that they were in, wherever it was like very austere. They didn't have any decorations and things like that. And they came up with the idea that like, hey, let's have fans kind of like decorate this stuff and we'll make it a contest. And so they did that. Everybody sent in all sorts of awesome stuff. I still think a lot of the entries I saw should have been the winner. But for some reason they picked me. And I had got my submission thing in like I was like, what can I do? Oh, why don't I send some printed issues of the Weekly Wheel News? Because that's what I've been doing, and I don't have time to do much else because that's been consuming my time. And
Mm.
so I did that. I sent him some of those, and then I was away in January on a weekend retreat with my wife and then some friends of ours. We were off at the ocean, just like walking down the beach, and all of a sudden my phone starts blowing up, and they're telling me that like I won the contest. And so Rafe had his assistant Patrick go and frame the covers, and then they hung them up in the writer's room, and they sent me a picture, and I got to have a Skype chat with Rafe very early on, and so that was a lot of fun. There were a lot of tech issues, and so like our half hour got basically trimmed down to like 15 minutes, and then he had to be in meetings and stuff, and I don't want to stop him from going making the show and stuff, so that was cool. I never, like, we didn't talk anything that was like NDA stuff, obviously, but we were able to kind of like, talk through the same kind of thing, like our history with the books growing up, like how we read them. He told me a lot about reading them with his mom, and how his mom had one of those original I Killed Asmodean stickers on her car, growing up, and how they read the books together and stuff. And so that was a lot of fun. He's just a really cool guy, very down to earth and stuff, and so that was great. So like I won that contest, so that was kind of nuts. It was kind of funny because at the same time that I was away on that weekend, that was when I was writing my my version of The Night Before Christmas, but the Night Before Winter, for the intro of The Eye of the World. And I usually tweet that thing out like, Christmas time once a year. But I have something special planned for that. So that's all I'll say at the moment, but
as we get closer to Christmas, maybe we'll hear more.
Yes.
But you do have right now, you are, I don't want to say the sole seller of WOT merchandise, but you feel a very large
WOT
gap,
inspired.
What
inspired?
Okay, let's get this straight. WOT inspired merchandise.
Yes.
We don't infringe any copyright laws and stuff, of course.
No.
But they're WOT inspired, and they're absolutely gorgeous. Now, you said before you come on that you had a couple of things there you wanted to show off.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got? Let's see.
Let's see. So
for those of you watching at home,
we have Weekly Wheel News merchandise.
Look at that.
Issue 1, Bat Boy spotted over bear lawn. Wait, I'm showing it to my microphone because I'm an idiot. I should be showing it to the camera.
Well, they want to hear it. They want to hear the cup. See what it sounds like.
The calf steaming into the microphone. Okay, so let's see. We have some coffee mugs. Here is Cold Rocks Usquai with my map in the background. Texture. And so for my souvenir series, like, we do mugs as well as the t-shirts that you guys have seen, which I'll show you some of the t-shirts too. And we also do frosty mugs I did the frosty mug of my I don't have it here, the Wine Spring Inn design that I did and things like that. But we also do them, for content creators. So I have frosty mug. Here's one for the Black Tower podcast we did, and here is one for the Way of the Leaf. And
super cool.
Yeah, so we've been partnering with a lot of the content creators and doing merch stores for them, so that's been a lot of fun. But then, like, just directly inspired by WOT, like, I've done this dice cup, and it says there's my camera.
That's super neat.
Again on there, and shiny gold letters, and then the dice are like
old-timey dice. Look at that. Yeah.
Imagine hearing this rattling in your head. That'd be so annoying all the time. Like,
poor Matt.
I know. So I had just started varnishing these. Like, this is like my 2.0 version, because originally they were just engraved, so they were like standard, birchwood color or whatever. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna oil them and see, and then I'll varnish them and see how they come out.
They turn out really nice. Really nice.
So I'm gonna start doing them like this now. this was just a set that I had lying around that I experimented on. And so a lot of stuff I have here is, either rejects, like where it didn't print all the way, or just kind of like trial basis kind of thing.
Now you sent me a map, and it is absolutely gorgeous. So rather than kind of move the camera around and stuff and whatnot, I actually took a video of it. I'll cut the video in here now for everybody at home. This map it's massive. I'm going to try to do it justice in the video and show how big it is. I had it framed and it's up on the wall here. It is absolutely gorgeous. So I'll show you folks that now. All right, so absolutely gorgeous map. And do you want to walk us through the process and what you did with it and how it came about?
Yeah, basically, so I've been kind of wanting to do a map of the world for a while, or at least the Westlands is how I started. So I got an iPad Pro with the pencil and stuff because my old iPad Mini just couldn't keep up with me when I was trying to draw on it. It was so outdated, and so I used Procreate app to do it, and basically, so I started drawing it, and I've been following Josh Stolar's and his Instagram posts a lot, and he is one of the guys who he did a map. Let me show you guys. He did this map of the two rivers. And then basically had it as like a free download if you followed his channel or something like that, and like a printable high resolution one. And so I printed that out and framed it. And so basically on Instagram, he's always putting out tutorials about map drawing and stuff like that. And that's something that I'd always geeked out about ever since I was like in grade school, and we had to do a board game for The Hobbit, and it was like a group project, and I did like 95% of the work on it. It's one of those. And so I'd always wanted to do my own version of the Wheel of Time one. And mainly like when I started making like these mugs and stuff, I was saying, my idea was I want to do my own map so that I could put it on merch that I make, because I don't use other people's artwork. I'm not going to use the show map and print it on stuff because that's not cool. So I wanted to have my own kind of like, background texture behind these things, and so I made them. I started out with the Westlands, and then I had the idea. I'm like, you know what? As far as I know, there's not been a full world map illustrated of the world of the Wheel of Time. If you go back to the Big White Book of Bad Art, then
which is behind me here on the shelf.
Yes, the world of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. Sorry, that's what it's called. There are some maps in there of the different continents and stuff, and there's one that's like very small of the world, but it's just outline, and color filled, and it's not detailed or anything. And I really wanted to just dive in because my background is in illustration. I've done, I went to school for that. I've, ever since I was a kid, my friends and I would watch Commander Mark's Secret City on PBS and like learn how to draw 3D stuff, and then bring our drawings back to school and compare them on the bus and things like that. And so I really wanted to just dive in and get super detailed because I love putting like little details and stuff, little Easter eggs all over the place. And so like if you look at the map like close up, you can see a lot of those things I tried to incorporate some show imagery and some of the and book stuff too, but like where the Waygate is outside of Tarvalon, and the new one outside of what is supposedly Falme. We'll find out, but the one that's in the water, like I put that in there, and I might have to revise that after season 2. Who knows? But so those are in there, like the way that they did the Eye of the World in the show. I incorporated that into the blight of the map, and then same as Shadow Logoth, and then a lot of the things that you don't see on the normal maps that other people have done, I put in there, like in the Eye of the World when Bail Doman has Matt and Rand on the ship, and they go by the Tower of Genjai, and he's like, "What's that?" And he's like, "I'll tell you all sorts of stuff. Like there's places that I've seen that, And so I incorporate a lot of those in the map. Like there's the island that's off the coast of the is it Windbiter's Finger or something? It's up in the northeast, and there's he says there's an island that's covered in a glass dome that sings when the sun hits it, and then he says there's a hill. That's like totally carved out like a bowl with a single spike coming up through it, and if you get within a mile you die. Like those kind of things I put in there into the map, so if you're looking around like super close up, you'll see them. And you can see them a lot better on my version of where it's just the Westlands map, because you can see a lot of that closer up than you can on the whole world, even though they're there on the whole world. I started to like, I really wanted to incorporate like all the other continents. Like I was saying, like, there are no maps that have internal anything about Shara. We don't know what it looks like. And so I really wanted to just not leave my Shara blank, because that'd be lame when everything else is super detailed. And so I started like researching like weather patterns and, like where a rainforest would form and, shadows of mountains and things like that. And just kind of like added the details into Shara that we knew about, like the wall, how the whole continent, the coastline is all walled off.
It's all walled, yeah.
Yep. And how they talk about anybody who sails across the Mornal Ocean toward Shara, like their channelers like nuke the ships before they get close. And so like I put like a bunch of whirlpools and lightning and stuff, because abandon all hope ye who enter here kind of a thing. And so I put that in there. I really wanted to just have Shara look just as detailed as everything else. And then the same with the Land of Madmen. I put that in there. And then there was a lot of back and forth, and I talked to a lot of different people about the size and the scale and stuff. And I had the thing almost done, and then I got an email from Matt Hatch, and he's saying like, actually the scale in the Big White Book was wrong for Shara, and Shara's supposed to be a lot bigger, or Shan-Chan is supposed to be a lot bigger. And I was like, crap. Okay, so I got to go back, redo that again. Like, and it's not like it's just like vector art where I can just scale it. It's like it's all drawn,
hand drawn.
So like if I blow it up too much, it's gonna get fuzzy. So I had to redraw a bunch of the stuff. I had to redo the waters of the coastline and things like that. There's a lot of work that went into it. I estimated probably about 40 hours worth of work, but the cool thing about Procreate is it tracks all the time you're in a certain file. And so I went back and I looked at it, and I was actually like upwards of 80 hours that I spent.
Wow, that's a long time.
As a whole. Yeah, I did have to totally redo the Westlands, because I was like, I was like nodding off as I was drawing it. I'm like, okay, I gotta close this, and so I hit like a button that I was unfamiliar with, and it was like a scale button, and it just like, it was like the size of a pea, and I was like, oh no, and having a background in mostly doing design on the computer, like if I hadn't saved it and it's not in an autosave mode, then I can close the file, I'll come back to it, and it'll be reverted to, because I didn't save it, I didn't overwrite it. And unfortunately Procreate doesn't have like what do you call it, like versioning, where you can go back like a couple versions or whatever. And so like I lost the whole continent, but it was kind of a mixed blessing, because at the same time I had noticed that I had the shading on the mountains on one side on the East Coast, and then like the other side on the West Coast. And I wasn't really that happy with it. I wanted to be a little more detailed and stuff. So I ended up having to redraw the entire Westlands continent. I hadn't done any of the labeling yet, so that was good. But basically like I just had a flattened JPEG of my previous one. So I basically like imported that and traced it, redid the stuff I wanted to redo and stuff like that, and then got rid of that layer, and really pushed the software to its absolute limit, to the point where like it wouldn't let me add any canvas to get any size of the Mortal Ocean on each side. And I'm like, well, I can't have this ocean look like it's just like an inch wide. That'd be ridiculous, like. So I'd import it into Photoshop, blow up the canvas, and then like, so now anytime I have to like make updates or changes to it, because there have been a couple times where I've like, oh, I forgot to add the name of that pass back in there or whatever, now I've got to go between Procreate and Photoshop and stuff. And luckily I've been doing Photoshop for over 20 years. So it's not hard. It's just a little bit of an effort. Like,
on the other hand, have
that,
zero skills in that area at all. None.
Yeah.
So you can actually tell.
Awesome. So
it did. The map looks absolutely amazing. And again, links down below in the description box for you folks who want to pick one up. And I highly recommend you pick one up.
And we print it on our wide format printer on canvas, and so it's not just paper. It's like a canvas piece. It's huge. It's like 4 feet long. Yeah,
it's 4 foot by I think like 1.5 feet or close to 2 feet almost.
Yeah, closer to 2 feet. I think it's like 4 feet by 20 inches, 22 inches, something like that. So almost
it's a lot. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely gorgeous. So I've left a link down below to Rob's store, so you can take a look at some of the things he has there, as well as the specific link to the map, because the maps are gorgeous. I absolutely love them. If you folks want to pick them up, you can go over there. They have a ton of different things, and you mentioned t-shirts as well. You have all kinds of different t-shirts. Do you have any line around there you can show us?
Yeah.
So cool.
Talk Radio. That one is a hit. This one was a big hit at WatCon. The 4-Crute Ice.
The 4-Crute one.
Yep. So that was fun, and I can show some more of these at the end. But this is a pretty popular one. Loyal's Fine Antique Bibliothèque. So basically, my idea for these, like, I was on a honeymoon trip with my wife for our 20th anniversary, and we went back to the hotel where we first had our honeymoon at, basically. And as we were leaving, we walked through the bookshop, or not the bookshop, the gift shop. And I'm looking at all the different, like, souvenirs, and there's like, here's the Alderbrook Inn t-shirt, and here's the Alderbrook Inn sweatshirt, and all this kind of things, and I'm like, had the idea in the back of my head, it would be cool if you had these kind of souvenirs from like different locations within the Wheel of Time, because for some reason that's always running in the back of my head.
Oh, 100%.
As much as my wife hates it. And so we got back, and I kind of like threw some ideas together, and she has a apparel and custom printing business for gift items and stuff like that. And so I said to her, hey, if I make some of these things like for my nerd friends, like, can we sell them on the store? And how would be the best way to do that? And she's like, oh yeah, go for it. So we started making these t-shirts because she does dye sublimation, all this kind of stuff. And so like, that's very technical, but basically the idea is the artwork is infused into the t-shirt, so it won't ever wear off. It's not printed on there. It's not screen printed. It's not vinyl transfer or anything for these ones. And so they're super comfy, and I kind of like wanted to go for a retro kind of style, just basically keeping it clean and subtle. And basically the idea is, if you're wearing one of these shirts and you're out in public, and we all know how hard it is to find somebody who knows the Wheel of Time also, that, you strike up a conversation. Somebody's like, oh, hey, I know those books, bam, instant friends, like, that's the whole idea. And so to kind of keep it, low key, but still, still fan based and book based.
You can blend in, but people who know.
Yeah, if you know, you know. Hashtag geek. So that's been a lot of fun. And now I have over 25 designs, and I have 4 more that we'll be posting very soon. I have one that's based on Do My As Wells that I think people are gonna love.
That's gonna be a big hit.
Yeah, I love having the they'll look vintage, and they'll have that kind of like book accurate, or I started making a show one now, and so we'll see. But I like infusing a little bit of humor into them.
Yeah,
You know,
100%.
like,
Yeah.
and so like I was showing that the Copland Talk radio and stuff. So those ones have been fun. So the Do Might As Well is one I have coming out. I have one for Natron's Barrow. You know, the Grendel's hideout in the mountains.
The Balefire Central.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It says on there, it says like the views to die for. And so,
oh, that's so good.
pour one out for Arangar. And and then there's a couple other ones coming. There's one that's based on the Great Hunt, and then there's another one that's, well, I have the Ibara Forge. It, or no, the Luhan Forge is the first design that I did. And then, you know, this was like before the show was released or anything like that, and we didn't know a whole lot of stuff about it. But generally, like, you know, more book focused.
Yeah.
But I was chatting with Helena Westerman online, and I was like, hey, I want to send you a t-shirt. And because we go back and forth like about the axing and the fridging and all that kind of stuff all the time, and she's hilarious about it. So I did one that's I did a new one that's Ibara Forge, because Master Luhan's not in the show, you know, like it's him and his wife, and so it's basically that, and then it has you know, it has the axe and the hammer up above the logo.
That's super neat.
So yeah, so those 4 are going to be coming out soon, but they've been a lot of fun.
So again, links are down below if you folks want to check that out. I definitely recommend buying some of the stuff. It's really cool, and there's a ton of different things on there. So let's shift gears here a little bit. We're going to talk just a bit about the book series and the show. So when you read the book series, do you have a favorite character? Like your absolute bar none, doesn't change. Give me your top 3.
My favorite character, Duby Beldoman. He's my favorite character, even though he's a bit character. I just love him. He's just hilarious. Yeah. He's awesome. I love a good pirate. And so Beldoman. And then I would have to say second is Egwene, because I love her story arc. The one thing I love about these books is just the way that the women are very strong characters and don't take a backseat to the guys at all, you know. And 100%. So I really love that. And so so Egwene is probably my second favorite, or my number 2, and then third would probably be Matt, because I just love him. I just love a roguish Han Solo character, and I just love the dichotomy between like what he thinks in his head and what he actually does.
So a lot of people seem to think that there are 2 separate Matts in the series. There's Robert Jordan's Matt and Brandon's Matt, because Brandon does write Matt a little bit differently. And
yes, I
have gone out on a limb before and said that I like Brandon's Matt better and got roasted hard for it. But you folks, I like Brandon's Matt better. I'm sorry, I do. Because I like that sort of character. What about you? If you had to pick one.
I prefer Jordan's Matt, you know, post Dagger, of course. But I do like, I can appreciate how hard it was, you know, for Brandon to kind of like get his head around that character, right? Because there's like, I definitely noticed it when I first started reading The Gathering Storm. I'm like, wait, what this is like a Marvel variant of Matt. This can't be like the real, you know, like he would.
It's like really Loki 2.0,
yeah. And I think a lot of it is like, you know, just, I mean, when he wrote that letter to Elaine, it was hilarious, but at the same time, like, I think it's inconsistent with the way that, like, because he writes letters earlier when he's like back when he's in Abu Dar, like I think immediately before the whole Thailand thing happens, like he wrote a letter to her, and it doesn't come off as being like, you know, like misspellings every other word and bad grammar and all this kind of stuff. And I think Brandon leaned into it a little too hard, but I definitely think that he, you know, course corrected once he got to Towers of Midnight and A Memory of Light. So I love the sequence where Matt is, after he's married, you know, and they're doling him out, and like the huge shoulder pads and the, you know, like the official, you know, ornamentation, and like they're bringing him the different lacquered eye patches and stuff like that. And that scene is hilarious. I drew a cartoon of that scene at one point in time that I just thought I love his quote where he's like, if I have to look bloody ridiculous, and I'm going to look good doing it. So
Hopefully at some point we'll get there in the show. That's my hope anyway. I want to see that Matt on screen. Of course, we don't even know what Matt's going to be like now because there's a new actor involved in the new Matt, and the joke is that he's going to be recast every season. But I don't think that's going to happen. So favorite scene out of the book series. If you had to pick one scene that was your absolute favorite, bar none.
I mean, I know that everybody says this, but the glass columns and the shadow rising, like that sequence. That's a
lot of people's very, very favorite scene, and there's some hope we'll get a full episode of it for the third season. I don't think so. I don't think we're going to get a full episode.
The interesting thing is, like, we all love that scene, but it's totally characters that aren't even in the books otherwise.
Yeah, just
if you think about it,
they never come back.
Yeah,
a really good spot for some celebrity cameos, though.
Yeah, but I would say, like, other than that, like, my favorite scene, and this is the one, like I said, when I started reading the books, I was Rand and Matt and Perrin's age. And so, like, the whole thing as the books came out, I really wanted Rand to reconnect with his father. And I was like, why hasn't that happened yet? And so, like, when they had those two scenes where at first Rand, like, you think it's going to be amazing, and then he almost kills him. And I'm like, and then, like, you know, then he, after the drag him out and he goes back, he talks to his father again and introduces him in and stuff. And, like, I cry like a baby every time when I get to that scene, because I'm just like, and especially now that I'm a father and my kids are that age, you know, like my son is 22, I think my daughter's 25. And so, like, I can definitely have a different perspective. But that, and then, like, you know, when Tam says at the very end, you know, like, you've done well, boy, you've done so well. And I'm just like, even right now, I'm kind of choking up talking about it.
Choking up just a little bit.
So,
No, I 100% can see that, because that was one of the things that from almost the second book, I would say, as I was hoping for that reunification the whole way through. And when it did happen, I was a little upset it didn't happen for longer, if that makes any sense. If he wasn't more involved, they weren't more involved together. But really good scene. I can't complain about that one at all.
Yeah.
So the show. Now, the last thing we'll talk about is the show before I let you go, because I don't want to keep you forever here today. But the show. What are your thoughts on the show? Because a lot of people have varying different thoughts on it. Myself, personally, I love the show. Love it to pieces. I love the people who run the show. Love the actors and actresses on it. It has its issues and problems. 100% it does. I'm very honest about that in a lot of my videos. But that doesn't mean I don't like it. It doesn't have to be perfect to enjoy it. What are your thoughts on it? Like, is there something you particularly liked or didn't like about it?
The one thing that I really enjoy is the fact that, like, and it's weird because with other adaptations, I don't feel this way, but maybe just because, excuse me, maybe just because I know the story so well, it's like, I love seeing the characters that we love on the screen. And I know what's going to happen at the start, and I know what's going to happen at the end. I think I know, at least. And the way that they get there is totally new and different. And that's what I think is exciting about it. You know, like, I don't think that it's ruining the books in any way, shape, or form.
No.
The books, you can always read them. I do appreciate this, like, other new turning of the wheel kind of approach. I do think that they definitely would have benefited from more time per episode and more episodes per season. Like, I think
100%.
Pretty universal. I understand why they're doing a lot of stuff, like, you know, okay, we have a whole lot of lore to kind of educate people on, like, we're going to have to do a whole episode about, like, warders and Aes Sedai and politics and stuff like that. I would have loved to have more screen time around the Emmonsfield 5 through those episodes, but there's so much stuff that they have to get, you know, down. And, you know, frankly, I know it's been said before, The Eye of the World is not the most interesting book. And
it's a messy book. It's messy. And I mean, even diehard fans of the book series, they have to agree it's messy, because when Jordan wrote it, as far as I know, from what I've read from interviews and talked to people about, he didn't know if it was going to be a standalone or a trilogy or a 15-book series. And you reading it, you can tell that some things are kind of neatly wrapped up, and there were some other things that maybe that they're going to expand upon that didn't happen. And it was messy. It was a good book, but it was still not perfect.
I'm glad that they changed the ending for the show.
Yes.
Because
Yeah. No.
the ending was just weird. And I don't care how many times people try to retcon explain it to me. Like, it's just weird. It's like you don't see glowing umbilical cords, you know, like all over the place anymore after that and stuff. And it's just
and you never get another
odd.
pool of the power. You never get another eye. I know. I think one of the very, very early versions, there was talk of multiple eyes all over the world, and there are going to be seals, kind of like you're playing Zelda and you're going to different castles and getting different things, right? But I am glad that, like you said, they changed that, and I'm happy that they did what they did with Rand and Ishamael in the last episode, because it sets up what happens in the very last battle earlier. Yes. Because when that happened, it was just sort of like when it happened in the books, you were like, okay, cool, but this is something brand new. At least now they can kind of go back and allude to it a bit, which is nice.
Yeah. A lot of people really didn't like the ending of episode 8. And I actually I liked what they did because it mirrors what's in A Memory of Light. Yeah. You know, like I think it was done well. And I think there's a lot of subtle things in there. Like we've all theorized about a whole lot about, like, you know, why does Ishamael kind of grin right before he like fades away? And, you know, like, is it interesting that the seals are like, you know, huge, but they're in the ground, and like,
and the number of cracks in the seal.
Yeah, all those kind of things. I think because the writer, well, a lot of the writers, or at least Rafe and Sarah, you know, like I imagine a lot of the writers haven't read the books before and don't want to be influenced by it. But there's a lot of those kind of things in there that they will put in there, just like in the books, to discover on rereads and rewatches.
Yeah,
and things like
a little bit of foreshadowing. I imagine we're going to get season 2. We're going to watch season 2, and then after we finish watching season 2, I'm going to go back. I'm going to watch season 1 again, because I'm sure there's stuff I'll pick up then and go, oh, that makes sense. It makes total sense now. That little thing ties into something in season 2, and I imagine again in season 3, because one of the things they said they did want to do, like the books, is foreshadowing, and I can't wait to see a lot of that, because you're hitting the face with it with like a hammer when Min talks on screen, but there's a lot of little stuff I'm sure that we all missed.
Yeah, and if they kind of take the approach where they're kind of letting the Forsaken out one by one accidentally, I think that would be a lot more interesting than just having them all out and, you know, at the start and doing what they're doing, you know, like. And
I would rather them use less in the show, because I mean, to be fair, one of the things Jordan did not do well was bad guys. The Forsaken were pretty 2D throughout most of the series. Some of them weren't. I mean, Demandred is my favorite Forsaken, 100%, bar none, hands down. And it's mainly because of what happened with the short stories and how they fleshed him out a little bit and what went on. I liked all that. I liked the idea that he thought himself a savior and a champion in a different way. I like that. And I hope they do more of stuff like that in the show, where they flesh them out and they make them more believable, rather than just these kind of bad guys in the background, which is what they were for a lot of the books.
Yeah, I do hope they kind of like, if they're going the same route where they have him, you know, off in Shara, I hope that they introduce a little bit of that along the way. And I think that makes more sense for how you structure a TV show and stuff, rather than just like in the books where like all of a sudden, oh yeah, this is where he's been the whole time, and like bam, here's like an instant army and stuff, and it's just like, that was a little ridiculous. But I think that those kind of structure things, once you know the material where you come from, you can kind of you know, sew those things in, you know, edit it a little differently and more interesting for TV. So I'm excited with what they are doing. I hope that the show continues.
We're getting 3 seasons at least. We know 3 at least for sure. So
hopefully it won't live in the shadow of Rings of Power forever, you know? So we'll see what happens with that, you know?
I'm kind of hoping that with the extended wait between season 1 and season 2, because it's a long time. It's like a year and a half. We're probably going to get it sometime late first quarter, mid to late second quarter next year. Is what I've been hearing for months and months, and even before they stop filming. I'm hoping that they can release it at such a time that there is a big gap of time between them and Lord of the Rings, because if they can do that, then it won't live in its shadow and it can be its own thing. But otherwise, I don't think it ever will be. I think they'll just ignore the marketing and ignore everything else, because it'll be all Lord of the Rings all the time. I mean, to be fair, it's Jeff Bezos' baby. He loves it. Apparently he's a Wheel of Time fan too, but just not as big.
He's a Wheel of Time fan too. Like I've heard like from the start that, you know, when he went after the rights to the Lord of the Rings, he also was a Wheel of Time fan. This is one of the things that I'm pretty sure I can say from when I talked to Rafe in that initial call, was that that Jeff Bezos was a big fan of the Wheel of Time. So is the head of Sony and his wife. They were both big Wheel of Time fans, and so they all had a vested interest in, you know, acquiring the rights and doing a good job. And so hopefully, like, it will continue, and it won't get, you know, axed halfway through. I would love to see them, you know, like, go all the way to the end of Rafe's vision for this thing, because it would be,
I hope so too,
a tragedy if it gets, you know, cut after you know a few seasons, for
like The Expanse.
Yes. I'm still bitter about that. But somebody else could pick it up, or Amazon could pick it up again. Who knows? Like,
you never know. I mean, they picked it up from Sci-Fi, and they helped a bit, and then it was gone again. So
yeah, this day and age, like, nothing is ever like fully done. I mean, like, you know, I just recently heard that they're bringing Quantum Leap back.
They are.
I don't know if it's that's going to be a remake or if it's
it's next week, I think, or the week after, and Scott Bakula is supposed to do an actual cameo in it, which is super neat. I'll be watching it for sure. I mean, that was a huge show for me when I was a kid. So, but yeah, no, thank you so much for coming with us here today, and thanks for sharing your thoughts on the book series and the show and stuff. And again, for everyone at home, links to all of Rob's stuff and the Weekly Wheel News stuff is down below in the description box. Please go there and pick up some of the stuff. There is really no Wheel of Time merchandise other than those terrible sweaters that Amazon put out. I mean, Rob's got you covered. Look at all this really cool stuff. He's got tumblers, he's got glasses, he's got shirts. He's got bookmarks. Those are cool. Laser etched bookmarks.
Yeah, did you see the Ashimon ones? These ones are...
I did. Those are gorgeous.
These ones are like on bronze, so they're heavier duty.
And if you're watching and you're an exec at Sony, and you're in charge of marketing, and you're in charge of merchandise, hire this man, please. Because the stuff he's putting out is amazing, and it's better than anything official we've had in a very long time. So
let me work for you.
That's right. Hire you and hire Lauren too. There's so many people in the fandom that are so talented that they just need to hire them. That's just how it needs to be. Well, thank you all so very much for
free forever.
Oh, that's right. Well,
sorry. We still will.
We'll still do it. Well, thank you all so very much for sticking with me here to the very end, and here's to many more.